Hello viewers, this is Charles and this is the next in my series Learn Programming and Game Development with Lua. So at the end of the last video I said that we would be animating sprites in this video, but of course then what happened is I started to plan it out and I quickly realised that if we wanted to animate sprites in this video we were going to need to load an image in the Love2D game framework. We actually need to look at how you can load an image in the first place, how you can get the dimensions of that image, and then in the next video we can look at how you can chop an image up using said dimensions. And once you've chopped it up, so you can take a sprite sheet and chop it up into the sprites, we can then animate it. Now the thing is, if I include loading an image and the other things we need to do before we can actually get to animating sprites, video's going to go on much too long. I'm trying to keep these videos in the kind of 10 to 20 minute range. I don't want them spiralling over 30 minutes. So this video is going to cover the loading of an image in the Love2D game framework, and the next video will then look at animating sprites. In this video I want to look at loading an image into Love2D. But before I do that, I want to briefly look at how you configure Love2D so you can change the window size and other parameters. So that's what we're going to look at first. So I'm in ZeroBrane Studio, and what you need to do first is create a project directory. Now I've already created one of these, and then you need to point ZeroBrane Studio at your project directory, and you do that by going project directory choose, and then choosing your project directory. You can see mine is on my D drive, YouTube, Learn Programming and Game Development with Lua. 15 loading images in Love2D with Lua. You need to set that up first. Once you've got your project directory set up, we need to create a main.lua. Well, we already have a untitled.lua, so all I'm going to do is to save that, save as, and call it main.lua, and it should save it to the project directory automatically. So I just type main, because if you recall, Lua expects main.lua, that's its entry point. Now we need another file, and this is for the configuration, and this one we're going to call conf.lua. So we're going to go save as, and we're going to go conf.lua. In fact, it'll do the .lua, but anyway. I'm going to open the documentation and then just talk you through it, because it's useful to know how to find the things you might need for configuration. So I've switched desktops and I'm now DuckDuckGo. I'm going to type love, and then we'll get to d.org, so we'll go straight there. And then we go to the wiki, and I'm just going to type in the search conf, but you could type configuration, I think that will work too. So let's type conf. That's taken us to config files. So what we need to do now is to enter this code, because what I want to demonstrate is changing the window width and height. And the default at the moment is 800 by 600. You can see that down here. In fact, I'm going to highlight it. It's that bit, and that's what we're going to change. So the function we need to type in is going to be function love.conf, and we need t because we're calling properties of t. So let's do function and then love.conf, and then we need t. So now we need the window width, and that is t.window dot and then width. So this is a 16 by 9, and then we need to end the function. Then we need to go save, Control S, Command S on Mac. I don't need to enter any code in main.lua to build this. I'm just going to build and run to see what happens. And the fact that we created a window that is 1280 by 720 means that it's working. Let's put it back for now. So 800 by 600. So of course if we deleted this we'd get the same thing. Let's now save. You can see it tells you when it's unsaved. And now we're back to the standard. There's one other configuration property we're going to look at, but we're going to look at that later, and it's to do with where the output goes when you print something. But the immediate thing we need to do is to actually get hold of some assets, because what I want to do is to put an image onto that screen, because at the moment it's incredibly boring. So what we want is to get an image in here. Before we do that, we need to get some assets. So for the purposes of these videos, which of course are free, I need free assets. So I'm not using the assets I've been collecting in Humble Bundles and other sources. I'm sourcing free assets so you can just download them and use them in the project. But of course, if you have your own assets, you should use them. The techniques I'm demonstrating will work with any asset, so you don't need to use the ones that I'm using. So that being said, let's get started. So I'm going to open another tab in DuckDuckGo, and I'm going to go to itch.io and hope that I'm pronouncing it correct. And here we go. So I'm going to search for a creator because I know what I want to download. I'm not logged in, so if you don't have an account, this is what you'll see. I'm going to type the name of the creator in here, which is Anzimuz. I hope I pronounced that right. Now I'm going to go to the Legacy collection. And this one's free. This has a lot of useful 2D assets. If you have an account, and in fact, even without an account, you can download this. You can see I'm not logged in. So you can download. So that should be downloaded. Let's just see if it has. It has downloaded. What you need to do now is to extract it somewhere, and then we're ready to go. Now, I've already done that. I've put it in my asset library and I've got it here. Let's go up to the top level. So it's the Legacy collection here. I've extracted it all and this is what you get. So we get assets, and what we're going to do is to double click to go inside. I'm then going to go into environment, and I'm just going to pick the top one because it doesn't matter what the image is. If you don't want to do this, by the way, you can just load in a photo. But let's do this for this demonstration. And in fact, I didn't do that one. So I think we're going to do another world. And the one I want is this one. Now I have a little utility in Windows which is called Quicklook. What Quicklook does is it gives you the functionality that you have on Mac. Now on Mac, if you're in Finder, which is the file explorer on Mac, if you just click the space bar, press the space bar, and you've got a folder selected, it then shows you the contents. And this is, in my opinion, incredibly useful. So I use this little utility on Windows called Quicklook, and it's available on the Windows Asset Store. What we're going to do is to copy this, so Control C, and then I'm going to go to my project folder, which is that one, and I'm going to go inside and I'm going to create a folder called Assets. I'm going to go inside. I just pressed enter to go inside. I'm going to do Control V to paste, and now I've got the asset in here. Now I'm going to switch back to ZeroBrane Studio. Back in ZeroBrane Studio, what we need is to load lists into memory. Before we do anything in here, what I want to do is to write out the callback functions that we might need to use. And I'm just going to write out 3 of them, and the most important one is actually load. So love.load, and then we can just go end. I also want the callback function love.update, and that has dt as a parameter, and then end. The last one I want is love.draw, so let's do that. So that in essence is what we need to complete. To load an image, which could be the background for your game, you want to do this once. You only want to load it into memory once. You're going to draw it on every frame because that's how the drawing process works. But to actually get from the file on your computer into memory, into something that the Love2D game framework can use, we need to load it. And the place, of course, to do that is in the load function, which is executed once when the game runs. So that seems to be the perfect place to do this, and it is. I'm going to create a variable called image, and then I'm going to load the image from the disk into it, and that's done like this. Love.graphics dot, and then it's new image, and then in the bracket we need to pass the path. Now the path always uses /, that's platform independent, so we know it's going to be in the subdirectory assets with an S on the end. And then I'm going to go to File Explorer, click once on the file, press Shift and use the arrow keys, and then Control-C to copy, and then switch back to ZeroBrane Studio and then paste it in. That avoids having issues with the wrong name, because if you have the wrong name, of course it won't work. So now if we run it, it should build and we should get a black screen because we haven't drawn it. And that is the case. In love.draw, I'm now going to draw the image. And now if I run it, you can see the image is loaded. The next thing I want to do is to actually output the dimensions of this image to the output down here. So let's see how we'll do that. So back in love.load, I'm going to have a local variable image width. And I'm going to set that equal to, now what I can actually do here is to go image. Now dot won't work, what we need is colon and then getWidth. And then we don't need to pass anything, and that should get the width. And then what we want to do, of course, is to print it. So print and then image width. And then double the concatenation operator, and then image width, and then we can close it. I want image height as well, so let's do that. And here I can go, so we need a let's have a comma and a space, and then we can close that, and then we can go, actually I need to type image height and colon space, and now image height, and that should output to the output down here. So let's run it and see, or we might get an error. So it's run, but you can see there's nothing in the output. Let's close this. And you can see as soon as I close it, you get the image width, which is 752, and the height, which is 176. That agrees with the dimensions that we see in Windows Explorer. Now, if you're on Windows, there's something else you can do so you get the information in real time. So let's demonstrate that. Then I will show something that will work cross-platform, that actually works in ZeroBrane Studio itself, which is actually perhaps more useful. So all we need now is t.console equals true and save. I'm going to switch back to DuckDuckGo and show you what that does. So in DuckDuckGo, you can see down here we have a list of all the things you can configure, and here t.console equals false, and what that does is to attach a console, but it only works in Windows. So I've now put it to true, so we should get a console when we run, provided that we've saved, which we have. So now if we run, I'm expecting to get a Windows console plus the Love2D game. So let's see what happens. And you can see in the Love console, I get 752176. So that's good. And if I close the console, it will close the game. But there's a better way of doing this. And the better way of doing it is like this. I'm going to do it at the top of love.load. And the first thing I'm going to do is to put a comment. I'm going to copy paste the comment in because it's got a link, and then you can use the link because you can access my source code on GitHub. There's a link in the description below. So I'm going to just paste that in here, and then what we're going to do in essence is to turn the Love2D buffering off so that the output appears in the ZeroBrane Studio Output immediately that we do the print statement. I'm now going to enter a Lua expression which will turn off the vertical buffer, and the way you do that is io.std out, that's standard out, and then set v buff and then no, and then close the brackets. And now if I run that, well, now if I run it, you can see we haven't quite got what we're expecting. The reason this doesn't work as expected is we still have this console. So the console is taking the output, and then there's nothing to go to ZeroBrane Studio because the buffer's been flushed. What we need to do is in Conf Lua to put this back to false and save. And then if we go back to main.lua, this should now work. So let's run it and see. And now you can see down here we've got the image width and the image height, and that's exactly what we need. If you're using ZeroBrane Studio, I think this approach is by far the best because you simply get the output inside the IDE. So I would recommend this. And it's worth saving snippets of code like this somewhere where you can just quickly copy paste them in. It's not something you need to remember. The reason I've gone to this length to output the width and height of this image is in the next tutorial what I want to look at is loading sprites from a sprite sheet. I want to load the sprites from a sprite sheet and then use that so we can have an animated character. Well, to be able to cut the sprites out the sprite sheet, I need to know what the size of the sprite sheet is, and I need to know the size of the sprites. So you can see here we've got the width and the height, and that's a good starting point for the next tutorial. There's one other thing I want to show you because there's another way of doing this, and the other way of doing this is to use getDimensions. But with getDimensions you can then go image width, comma, image height, and we've seen this in a previous tutorial, and then you can go image colon getDimensions, and then let's run that and see, and you can see that worked. So that's the alternative. And if you recall, Lua has this interesting ability to return more than one value from a function, which is what's happening here. In fact, if you want to look it up in the documentation, of course, you can just go back in here, type in getDimensions, and it should come up. Here we go. And you can see it returns two numbers, the width and the height. I think this sets us up nicely to do the next tutorial, which will be cutting sprites out of a sprite sheet and then doing a sprite animation. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Please click on the like and subscribe buttons. Have a great day.